Well, it's been a little while, basically since the end of daylight savings. I haven't managed to get home in time for there to be enough daylight left to do much in the way of filming. But today has turned out somewhat differently. So, time to start using the pell to practice some defences, okay? Which is not as satisfactory as somebody swinging something at you, but we will make do. So the very exciting topic for the day is forehand parries on the inside line. So we're going to look at three different sorts of forehand parries, starting with your bog standard Highland Carry on a slip. So the footwork, we're going to start in a wide stance, so not heels in line, but heels slightly out of line. And I'm going to slip my right foot back behind my left. Now, ideally, if you're in this stance, you should be mostly back weighted anyway, so 70%. And all you're doing is bringing this foot to here. So ideally, your toes barely touch the ground, okay? If you're doing a slip, you could do it really without touching the ground at all. It's just that, okay? But we just touch our toes on the ground there so that we can bring that foot forward again to riposte if necessary. If you happen to find yourself always putting your weight on it and you can't help it, the alternative is bring your feet together. That's perfectly legit as well. Either of those is fine, okay? Now the hand motion we're going to use is that. The tiniest motion you can, turn to the inside. A sparing turn of the wrist is the phrase you find in the sources. So we make a sparing turn of the wrist and slip our feet. And as you can see from my wide stance, it's my foot that is bringing the sword over. The minimal hand motion means that if it's a feint, I haven't made a great big action. I've only made a tiny little action and I've got time to respond to anything that's unexpected. So really concentrate on that. The other thing you'll notice that I'm contracting. I'm coming back away from the attack and pulling my hand in a little bit so that my muscles are all contracted and ready to respond with a really fast riposte. And ideally, I should be able to do that without stepping. So if we put all that together, this is what it looks like. I'm going to stand so that this is in distance. This is this extended sword that's going to hit me. And remember, this is the length of a hand and the sword. So that's going to hit me. Standing in my outside guard, make a tiny turn with my hand to the inside guard and slip back and land. There's the parry. Now I should then be able to riposte by turning my sword over to something between a cut 2 and a cut 6. Doesn't really matter. The trick is to make that as quick as possible. From here, expand. Contract, expand. As soon as you parry it, you expand. The left hand, which starts in front of my belly and page for the outside guard, stays here, and it is available to check your opponent's sword. There's no reason you can't do that as part of the practice. Parry, check with the left hand, expand with that riposte. So if I do that once at speed, as if I would in a real fight, it goes like this. Okay, so that's how fast you want your riposte. As soon as you parry, you expand with that riposte to get it in as quickly as possible. So in that case, we were slipping our right leg back behind our left, so slipping to the left. The next one we're going to do is we're going to start in a narrow stance and we're going to slip our right leg to the right. And we're going to use what Palismata would call second on the inside, which Wild would just generally call a crosswise parry. Okay, where instead of turning to an inside guard, I'm going to keep my sword in the outside guard position and sweep it across to form a kind of deflective parry. It's not really false edge, it's more, it usually ends up as a kind of flat to flat slap. And the nice thing about it is that it keeps your sword oriented in the direction of the riposte for a very, very fast riposte. The trick is minimizing the hand motion. If I just do that and I'm deceived, I've left myself very open as opposed to just doing that. So again, I want to use my feet to move the sword to where I want to go. So in this particular case, this is the motion I'm going to use. So I'm going to vault my right foot back and right, and it's not going behind there, it's parallel to where my left leg was, or is, and what that does is it turns my whole body like so. So I make the parry without really doing anything with my hand at all. So it's perfectly, so if I did that and turns out it's a feint, my hand is completely uncommitted and can respond really quickly. So the second parry is going to look like this. Outside guard, this is in distance, this is going to hit me. Parry, riposte. Okay? Really easy. Parry, riposte. If you do this against a real attack, you will tend to get a very sort of deflective parry. As you do this, this will catch the opponent's sword and kind of drag it forward and drag their face into your riposte to make it even better. So that's the second action. Outside guard, narrow stance, vault, and riposte. So we've seen that we can slip our front leg, our right leg, in various directions. Okay? If I'm in a wide stance, I can slip it back into the left. If I'm in a narrow stance, I could do straight back, or I could vault it out to the right, depending on the sort of parry I want to do. Okay? In any case, the point is that if my sword is point up, it really only guards from the hilt upwards. The legs need to be defended by distance. The other option, of course, is not to move the front leg, but to move the rear leg. Okay? And you'll often see people retreat like that, or just like that. Generally speaking, I don't recommend this, because while this keeps me safe and it keeps my legs safe, it also keeps my opponent safe. Okay? If I step back, I can no longer reach them on my riposte and have to come forward. Okay? So this kind of advance and retreat is not really going to be all that useful. So when we do this, we want to do it for specific reasons. And there are examples in the text. So the first one is obviously from Silver. Silver recommends compassing the rear foot around away from the attack. And you can see how this works, okay? Because from here, I again make a minimal motion of my sword to an inside guard and then compass. And that means that my parry is made with absolutely minimal hand motion, okay? I don't really need to do more than turn my sword to the right way, and the turn of my body does the same thing. And you could do that as a kind of incantata, keeping this foot where it is. But I find it's more useful, particularly if you've got a dagger and you're forward weighted, to allow yourself to compass on that front foot. So on the ball of that foot there, allow it to turn so that your heels remain heels in line and you're nice and pointed at that point of contact. That's all very well. As I say, I think it's more suited to sword and dagger. So the one that I'm going to get you to practice is similar. It's from Palace Armada, but it's designed for single sword, and is possibly a little bit more natural and probably a little bit more safe. Okay, and this is simply to step right back with the rear leg. Okay, and if we do this with our pell, okay, so I'm going to put this is definitely going to hit me in the head. And if I do this, you can see that step drops me well out of distance, okay, and brings my sword back onto my opponent's foible and gives me mechanical advantage in the parry, and that's all good. The downside of it is then I can't hit my opponent. In distance to hit each other, safe, but out of distance and I can't reach them. So the way you get around this is to riposte, bringing forward the left foot. So rather than slip and step in, we're going to step back and then pass forward on our riposte. Okay? As a slight aside, if I can get my feet in distance, as you pass forward, you can bring that over in that L-shaped orientation as a sort of crossover step. That's kind of my instinct, that's what I tend to do. But equally, you can swivel and come forward with this foot facing forward. That's fine too, either of them is fine. The point is, as we make that pass forward, we gain an enormous amount of distance. We get more distance than our opponent can conveniently retreat. So we use this to measure our distance. Parry. As I pass forward, you can see how much distance I get. I could basically pommel in the face with my hilt, if that were a face. So by stepping back and then passing forwards immediately, we overcome the disadvantage that you normally get from stepping back with this foot. Okay? It also lends itself really well to riposting with a thrust. Forming my inside guard, parrying, extending, and passing forward with a thrust in fourth. And if I do that right, I will probably knock my pell over, which is why we're doing this last. So let's give it a go. Like that. So that is the third form of parry. So these are my three favorite forehand parries on the inside line. Wide stance, sparing turn of the wrist, slip back and left, riposte with a cut to the outside, stepping back in to the right if necessary. Usually only happens if the other guy is much taller than you. Normally, if you get your distance right, you can just hit him with that turn of the hand. Second is the crosswise parry on the inside. So starting here, I'm going to vault my right leg back into the right, okay? And that will slap my opponent's parry down and allow me to riposte without having to turn my wrist, so it's really fast. Third one, palismata, step back with your left leg, immediately extend with your point and pass forwards. And although the step back means you can't riposte in time of the hand, the passing step allows you to make up so much distance that your opponent can't really escape it. Okay, so those are the three to practice. Try not to destroy your pell on the third one, and we'll have some more for you soon.